Welcome to our fourth regular product management meetup, ProductTank Prague, meetup organized by product people for product people. My name is Zdenek Farana. I'm the one of the co-organizers for the workstream organization because we separated our meetups into three workstreams: innovation, evolution, and organization. Today's topic is stakeholder management. We will be talking here with Andrej Danko from Merlon Intelligence and Tomas Kejzlar from MSD about it. So it will be a little nice chat and we shall see how well that goes. Before we talk about these offices and the company who provided us with space, I would like you to remind, if you have any questions during the event, please use Slido. And I wrote the link over here and over there on that Wi-Fi paper, which is right on those doors. It's slide.do/PT Prague. You can vote for the questions and you can use them for asking, obviously, as well. So please use that. We won't be taking questions in any other way. So we shall see. So let me give word to Roger from Accolade, where you are right now at.
Just turn this on. Okay, welcome everybody to Accolade Prague's offices. We're very pleased to be able to host ProductTank Prague today. I hope you enjoy our offices while you're here and the free refreshments. I get to tell you for a few minutes about what Accolade is and what we do. So Accolade is an American healthcare IT company. The business model that we work with is really geared towards the American market, but the problem that we solve is a problem that is basically universal, and that is how to deal with healthcare. We would describe ourselves as an online concierge for people accessing healthcare. That means when people have any kind of question about it, if they need to go to a doctor for a specific issue, or how they can find better help, how they can get access to different doctors, how to understand their medical bills, if they should pay for something or not pay for something, or where the nearest doctor of a certain specialty is. All of those questions we help people to answer. This is a service that many existing companies try to solve, and they typically try to solve it in one of two ways: by having a big call center, or by technology, having mobile apps. Either of these solutions on their own don't tend to work. The biggest problem in getting people to use healthcare services is trust. People don't want to use these systems until the moment when they actually get into trouble. And then when they are in trouble, they're typically stressed or nervous, because if you're using healthcare, it means there's something wrong with you or something wrong with somebody that you care about. So if you're not already using the system, the trust is typically pretty low, and the way most the way most call centers tend to work doesn't really engender trust. The technology solutions also don't tend to engender trust, because you're using a mobile app. It's very impersonal. A lot of people, when they're stressed, don't have the time to figure out a new application. So what Accolade tries to do is really build that trust by having a call center which is based upon different methodologies and different trainings. So our call center agents, when you call them, there is no KPI that tells them to get off the phone sooner. In fact, what we really work upon is to build the trust, build the relationship, and even dig into the reasons why people are calling, which maybe not be the first thing they actually say, to try to figure out what the underlying issue is and get to address that issue. It's a very interesting space to be in. The healthcare market in the US is absolutely huge. It's about $2.6 trillion a year. That's bigger than the total economy of Norway. And we figure that about 40% of that is waste. That means it's $1 trillion pie. If you can slice off 1 or 2% of $1 trillion pie, it's very easy to make a very good business out of it. It's also a business that we feel really proud about, because at the end of the day, we're helping people get better access to healthcare. All right, so that's what I have to say about Accolade.
Thanks, Roger. Thanks for, that was interesting. Please hand everyone to Roger. So, let's move on to the other part. If you guys can take a seat, the high seats over here. So, once again, welcome. So this is Tomas, MSD, Andrej, Merlon Intelligence. Guys, do you want to say something about you in a few words?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if anybody's interested, sure. So, yeah, my name is Tomas. So, I mainly work as an agile coach or like an agile fellow, because coach is probably a loaded word. Now at MSD, before that I was working at Komerční banka. I was also working there as a product manager for internet banking some time ago. So I have some of that experience. My origins are in development, so I started as a developer, but that's like 15 years ago now, a long time. So, and I don't write any code now, these days, just for fun. That's it.
Okay, so Andrej, you?
Well, my name is Andrej Danko. If somebody thinks that I'm the head of the parliament of Slovakia, I'm not. He is the same name. So I'm somebody else. I've been managing stakeholders for 20 years. So my career started in a large insurance business where we built transactional and analytical system for insurance. And I've spun out going through small companies to large companies, working 10 years at SAP, delivering global solutions to small and medium businesses, and currently working out of Silicon Valley in a startup that has a branch here in Prague, working on machine learning, different problems for different industries, managing a lot of stakeholders. So I'm very happy we can be here and talk about this interesting topic.
I'm glad you guys found time. So let's open with something easy. Who is stakeholder? What do you understand as a stakeholder?
Oh, that's easy?
Yeah, sure. It's the easiest question you can have. So maybe Tomáši, start.
Well,
What do you think?
there are so many definitions. I mean, if you look it up on the internet, we just did, I think yesterday or something, you get all these definitions, and they are just useless, right? Because everybody seems to understand differently. So the explanation that I like to use most often is that I understand the stakeholder, which they also call like a primary market stakeholder, which is your customer or your actually users, right? And that's different from the other explanation, which is stakeholder is anybody who is somehow interested in whatever product you're building. I tend to think that especially in big corporations, that's kind of bullshit. Because then you have all these stakeholders that are swarming around everything. Everybody wants to be a stakeholder just in case.
And you work in a big corporation,
Yes, and
right?
I work in, my experience is with big companies, and they're like, I see these parasitic stakeholders, as I call them.
Okay.
They're not real.
So Andrej, do you agree with that, or?
Well, definitely. I mean, I would expand on it that, if you're in a large corporation, you have to manage a lot of internal stakeholders in terms of the delivery, but the key stakeholders are those who are actually using the product. So it's the end users, if you look at it from the product management perspective, but they are not the ones who are actually buying the product if it's
Exactly.
a B2B thing. So you have to be thinking about both sides and what are actually their interests. I mean, if you look at stakeholder management and, like the little bit of the theory, it's always about, what kind of a power the person has in terms of the process and what kind of interest do they have. And that's a 2x2 matrix. And, obviously the most powerful people who have the highest interest are those that are the best to talk to because they are maybe the decision maker. The worst people are those who have the power but are not really interested but can make decisions. So how do you manage them? I mean, in a small company, obviously, when you're running a startup and it's a small company, internal management tends to be very, very easy at the beginning because it's very easy to align. But we do, for example, B2B sale, and our first client is a Swiss bank. There is a number of stakeholders that you have to manage, from end users to people who have their own political interest in terms of what should be implemented and done there, to those who are actually making decisions. And it's really important to be systematic about it and to map who actually these people are and what their interests are, and start thinking about active management.
How do you map them then? Like, do you have any tool or practice for that, or are you just like?
So, when I did the business school, it's actually one of the projects that we did was a startup, and I came up with the idea which was called active connections. So it was a system that reminded you who you have to reach out to, who you have to stay in touch so the connection doesn't dry out. And at the time, I didn't think about the application in stakeholder management, but today, when we have this discussion, and when I was kind of like preparing like what the topics could be, it came to my mind that actually there are no good tools that help you in stakeholder management. So back to your question, I mean, how we start right at the beginning when the sales process starts. You start to map the organization. You start to talk to people. You understand, okay, this is your point of contact in the organization, who that person is. Who is the boss of the person, who are the other colleagues in the team. And you start systematically mapping the whole organization at the beginning of the sales process and understand really, who are the decision maker in the sales, who are the influencers, who are the people that will be maybe the technical commanders, that will help you to get the solution through, whatever the context is.
Yeah. So how is it for you, Tomas?
Yeah, so one thing I used, something it's called influence mapping, which is basically what you're referring to, that you have this product or a goal, whatever, that you want to pursue, and you're mapping who is influencing it, what are the relationships between the people, and then you usually end up with this huge map, right? Where is everybody, and you have what you had there, what you were saying, which is you have what interests do those people have, and what power do they have. And in big corporations, usually the problem is that what's best for the users and for the customers or whoever, it's not necessarily aligned with what those people who have the power and the influence want. So that's where I see that disconnect, and sometimes it's just a big problem. Because then you get into that, you have a VP or something saying, well, the users would surely want this. And he has the power, so in the end, most people would then just capitulate and do that. And then it turns out that users didn't want that. Of course they didn't, because that VP was not a user, he was not a customer. He just thought he has all the answers, which is the problem, I think, with many of these high-power stakeholders, that they think they know all the answers without having any data, right? It's just a guessing game.
Yeah, well, sorry to jump in. We're basically talking about the hippos, right? How do you fight these hippos? I mean, that's a highly.
I mean,
highest.
It depends. Highest paid person's opinion, yeah. I mean, it depends. And I would first ask myself the question whether you actually have to fight them. Because sometimes these hippos can actually be right, and they actually know what to do.
Oh, that's the ideal case, of course.
That's the ideal case. And then again, if you were. And now we're talking not about the context of one product, we are talking maybe in the context of a portfolio, whatever you might have. And there you have somebody who decides, okay, what are the most valuable things, and then what are the least valuable things, right? And sometimes you have these hippos who can tell you what these three most valuable things are, and you don't have to employ any more complicated method of discovering them. But how do you recognize that, okay, this is a hippo that knows, and this is the one who doesn't know? I don't know, honestly. Maybe you do.
What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, any VPs in this room? Typically.
What a shame.
Next time we'll invite a few of them.
I mean, it really starts with understanding what their intent is.
Yep.
What they are trying to achieve. So, as an example.
How do you determine that?
Well, that gets to the management of the stakeholders. It's really about starting to get to know them, not only on a professional level, but the simple thing like going out and having a dinner with the key stakeholders can open up the people. We're working with a Swiss bank, for example, and a lady who is the VP in their department, who is responsible for the whole area, is a very opinionated. And very result-driven person. And it took us some time to really understand what her motivations are. And only through understanding her motivations, we now understand how we can help her to achieve her motivations, and at the same time, do what we have to do for the users. The conflict there was that she's like, well, these people in those departments, we're going to replace them with machine learning, and we don't need them anymore. We'll fire them. I'm not interested in them. You have to deliver what you have to deliver through the automation. Yeah? But we are a product-centric company. We do design thinking, and we think we will replace some people with machines. Some people will do other jobs, but there will be still end users. And those end users, you have to win the trust with them. So you have to really manage the expectation in both ways. Okay, we'll achieve your KPIs by reducing costs, but at the same time, you have to manage the expectation of the users. I mean, the system that we will bring in, it's going to be more efficient. It's going to be it's going to help you to make decisions, and you're going to be faster in their job. And you don't communicate really that you are going to fire them, because that's eventually not what's going to happen. They are going to be moved to other departments if we achieve our objectives. So understanding the intent of everyone involved is really the key. What are their motivations? And they may range. There might be various professional as well as some legacy things.
It could be anything, honestly. And I completely agree with you. Like understanding, I always approached like stakeholders and whoever with a question like, what's in it for them? What do they want to get out of that? Because probably nobody wants to do something when there is nothing in it for them. Certainly I don't. So I might be the exception here, I know.
Okay.
But anyway, it's a great question to start with, right? And you can have dinners, you can just have conversations. How can we help you with this product? How can it help in achieving your goals or KPIs? And sometimes we see, and again, yes, my background is in big corporations. Sometimes you see that those KPIs, which, as probably you know, KPI stands for keeping people insecure. So sometimes these KPIs are so misaligned with whatever you're trying to achieve with that product that you have a huge gap that you just need to search somehow.
Are you using any like psychological methods of like analyzing those people, their personalities, because that might be useful? Sometimes you run into someone who's dominant, sometimes you run someone who is running more on emotions. Have you been thinking about that? Or
there is a great book that I read. It's recommended by Andreessen Horowitz, and that book is like 80 years old, and it's about how to win people, and how to make friends and how to be successful. And it goes a little bit to what you said.
Is it Dale Carnegie's book?
Yeah, Dale Carnegie's book.
Oh yes, how to win friends and influence people.
How to win, and it's a very pragmatic book, and it talks exactly about these things. Like, I mean, what is it in for those people? Just being positive at the beginning, it's really, really important. It's like you don't know what the background is, where they're coming from, and if you're doing B2B, corporate environment, you name it, yeah. So really trying to understand the intent, what is it in for them, making sure that you're genuine, that it's not just like a cover up, okay, it's like I'm interested in you because I eventually need something from you. So you have to find a genuine way how to get interested in what the people want, and that's I think that guided or that book is it's like when you read it, it's like, yeah, it makes sense, it makes all sense, but we tend to because of our backgrounds, like not really do the things that are in there. So I highly recommend that book. And I see somebody's.
No, I'm just reading it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Actually, I have it almost finished as well.
Yeah. So I have two very, very scientific techniques on how to approach people, and they are, first one, it's called listen, that you actually listen to what they have to say. And by listening, I don't mean just that you will ask a question and they're saying something and you're just thinking about something else or preparing what I'm going to say to that, which is what most of us do, but really listen what the other person has to say, and genuinely try to understand that the genuinity that you refer to. And the second one is authentic curiosity, which is again that genuine, like, oh, can you tell me more about that? Please continue. I would like to learn more. Because from that you can uncover the hidden motivations and whatever. So these combined together, listening and being authentically curious, they do miracles. Of course, it's very, let's say, time consuming and it's exhaustive. Like, I can't tell you how exhaustive it is to listen to somebody, especially when you don't necessarily agree to what the other person is saying. It's just painful, and I think you all know it's painful, right? But still you have to do that if you want to understand the stakeholders, to come back to the original topic of stakeholders. so that we don't turn this into a psychotherapy session. You need to do that. And unless you are really genuine and you listen to them, you probably will never know.
How do you say no in these circumstances, though? You know, it's really nice to listen to people, but eventually you need to set some boundaries, which might not go necessarily hand in hand. Because saying no is a big part of product managers' work, usually. How do you go about it?
Well, there is never a no.
Like no strong no's.
Well, I mean, going back to the intent, if the intent is aligned and then there is a misalignment on the road, you're trying to circle it back to the intent. Yeah. So, I mean, an example that we had now, I mean, we're going into a test with our system where we have to prove that precision and recall in that system using some machine learning methods is not worse than what they are using today. And the test requires a lot of adjustments to the product that we haven't previously thought about. And we said yes to some because we had to pass the test. But then there were many that were more nice to have, and you could realize the same output with a workaround. So we listened and we understood the need, and then we said, okay, I understand you want this. We all want to get this test done, and there is a limited time frame. We can't do these things, but instead you can do A, B, C, and that will fulfill the same thing. It depends how hard-headed the people are, but usually, if the intent is aligned, then there is a way how to work it. If the intent is not aligned, then you have to go back to the roots and really understand, okay, where these differences are coming from.
Okay, that makes sense. How do you then like giving stakeholders some sense of visibility into things? Usually we all love roadmaps, right? So
maybe too much.
Yeah. What do you guys can say about doing roadmaps? But for me, I would be interested in hearing how you approach like the internal stakeholders with roadmaps, external stakeholders with roadmaps, and in that aspect, I mean regarding the product.
So I'm out of the product management business for a while. So from my past experience, is that usually what people are searching for in the roadmaps is some kind of guarantee or something. And that's usually because all other things are so turbulent or whatever, they're kind of tying themselves to the roadmaps. And it's kind of irrational belief that if we put it on the paper, it will eventually materialize, which is not the case. And this is not something you can easily fight or whatever. And it goes to something that you said earlier, that you need to basically make explicit that yes, we have a roadmap. These are the things that we think we can deliver, and hopefully those are things that tie to whatever they want to achieve, right? So that they can recognize their motivations into whatever you put in there. Because if you just put some names in there that nobody understands, how is it going to help me? How is it going to help my users? How is it going to help my customers or whatever? Then it's kind of useless. So first thing, I would say tie roadmaps to whatever is meaningful for the stakeholders. Second thing is express clearly that the roadmap is just a wish list, basically. Sorry, it is, at least in my opinion. And try to explain that there is this volatility, but that is actually a good thing, right? I know that many people are trying to have this fixed thing, oh, this is something we can count on, but then again, the environment and whatever changes, so you can actually, I think, use that to your advantage. So what I would never do is to, for example, present a 1-year roadmap with features or whatever to stakeholders and say, here you go, this is it. Chances are you're just not going to meet that. And chances are that you're limiting your ability to innovate, you're limiting their ability to think, because now they have something in place. Why would I think about that? Oh, I'm getting this. Unless something really drastic happens in the market, probably they'll not think about it, and you will not deliver as a good product as you might have. So I would do it in small chunks. I would call it like, how do you call it? Rolling wave road mapping or something, that we would generally extend the roadmap as we are going on and on and on. And I would point out, okay, these are the things that we are sure that we are going to deliver. These are the things that we might deliver. If there is a difference in priority, please change them. You can still change them. If there is something you don't like, please remove that.
Well, I'll agree with rolling wheel things. However, when you look at a B2B, like asking someone to buy something from you for several millions of dollars and not giving them clear visibility into a year or two, it's very hard to persuade those people to buy something for you if they don't have the visibility. And from what I've seen, those stakeholders are usually they understand that things change, but they need to have something to show even to the people above them.
No, I mean I understand that. So my very inappropriate reaction to this would be, so if you want a 2-year roadmap, do you think things will stay the same for 2 years? And the answer to that is probably no. And then the question is, so why do you want that? You know it's going to change, so we're just wasting our effort. Instead of building something, we're playing this mental exercise that will probably does nowhere, because in half a year we will change it anyway. Like, I mean, I have not seen, okay, I'm taking it back. I have actually seen that. So I have seen only a very few cases where things don't change in a period of months. And I think you can build a case in a way that, okay, instead of investing, I don't know, 100 millions over 2 years, let's invest a small amount of money to have something, and let's build on top of that. I know that not all stakeholders kind of buy that. And honestly, I don't know what to do with the ones that don't. Maybe you do.
So the good thing is also the stakeholders will change in 2 years. So
yes.
They will not remember the roadmap that you presented. Obviously the roadmaps that are, for the next quarter are more granular, more precise. Those that go, to a year or two are more a vision. So for me, roadmap is it's an imprecise plan for a vision that you have, whatever is going to change. And now, in terms of, managing the stakeholders around internally and externally, it's really about, okay, this is what we want to do next, in terms of the product and release. And further down, these are the things that we have a vision for, and whether it's going to be the A, B, or C, it's going to be determined by what feedback we get from customers, what happens in the market, you name it. And the smaller the company, in startup it's very volatile, it's like in half a year it will be a completely different document. For customers, it's really about showing them that you have certain vision, yeah? So, it doesn't say that you will deliver X in a year and a half. Who knows what's going to be in a year and a half. It's more about, okay, this is how I prioritize, this is how I see the vision. And, if everything goes fine, whether it's delivered, within that quarter or shift by quarter, back and forth, doesn't really matter. But they see the vision. We've just went through this exercise, and it was really, really important to get the client, the stakeholders who are actually buying and implementing the solution into the room and show them the vision. Show them that, yes, we're going to implement these models. This is going to influence this and this and this. But in general, it's really important to align both internally and externally, if that's possible, around something that my professor of economics calls it a coordinating device. What's the coordinating device that you can get everybody to think always about? It's like, what's the goal? Yeah. Okay, we will reduce ineffectiveness by 30%. By introducing XYZ, whatever the XYZ and whatever it gets. But okay, guys, we have this goal, and everybody's like always looking up at that goal. And if that's aligned between the client and the internal team, it's the best, because then you have like a full alignment.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that makes sense. What you were saying just about it's mindless to create something like long term for them, even though you reiterated on that. You have to, in my opinion, consider budgeting. because usually when budgeting happens, it's budget for in 4 or 5 years, it's for 2 years in 1 year frame, and then you have to be able to prove like internally those stakeholders you're actually cooperating with, they need to prove to accounting, to finance people that they will get something from that. So I see that's very limiting for all IT projects basically, and the budgeting, the way we do budgeting.
I mean, I do understand that. Honestly, I think the way budgeting is done in big companies is just nuts. It just doesn't make any sense. We have tons of research that proves that. We have the Beyond Budgeting group that found out 30 years ago that the way we do budgeting actually creates inefficiencies, it creates waste, and it just doesn't work. I mean, the best thing you can do is probably to work with your finance people or whoever to point them out to this. There is tons of, and I don't know, people don't respond to research, so it's kind of pointless anyway. But you can at least try. There are other ways how to budget things, and I mean, if you do what you were saying, that you state, okay, our 2-year end goal is something like this, and it's something really, really high level, chances are you can still get some money, and then you can capitalize whatever you're building based on the small increments for which you will have a quarterly roadmap or something, or monthly or whatever. I would not go beyond the quarter, like on a rolling wave, like so we'll have a quarter ahead. And then again, yes, if you have some customers, so for example, if you have 1 million customers, probably you want them to know what you're up to, so you need to provide that visibility also, right? But then again, I would do it in the shorter term, because if I imagine myself as a user, and probably you can imagine yourselves as well, like if somebody tells me that this app I'm using will have that feature that I need in 2 years, I'll probably not be very satisfied with that. I mean, 2 years, that's a long time. Even half a year is a long time for me. And I'll probably, if somebody says it will be there in 2 years, I'll probably start looking for something else.
Oh.
Because now, and that's tying it again back to whatever the real needs are and what's in it for whoever is the stakeholder. And if you can't do that, or if you can't satisfy the needs and make the product what they call fit for purpose or something, chances are that whoever is your user, customer, or stakeholder will just find something else that's more fit for purpose. Like, that's just natural selection. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, like, I like the phrase "fake it till you make it." Well, especially if you are in a startup environment like we are, I mean, it's impossible to deliver everything. I mean, you have limited resources. So, you know, one way how you manage expectations that you will deliver is, you know, I mean, using the roadmap to actually promise something that is not yet there. We will deliver, you know, we've delivered this, we will deliver that. I mean, you have to play the game, otherwise there is somebody else they will buy it from. So, you know, that's the balance that you have to understand, you know, I mean, are you going to really be able to deliver? Well, I mean, you know, I mean, it's like that's where your experience and guts come from versus, you know, I mean, it's like, okay, this is too much and we're not, you know, we won't be able to commit to this. And that's, you know, I mean, if we're talking about product, I mean, that's the role of the product manager in conjunction with, obviously, engineering or whoever is developing the product, you know, to make some of these bets. And of course, we were completely wrong at the beginning of the year, you know, because the company grew, we had, you know, issues organizing, whatever, so things have changed, but, you know, I mean, still, we consistently delivered things, and even the roadmap changed, things got the stakeholders changed as well, so it was new people that we had to explain it to. That's another important thing, you know, I mean, you know, constantly monitoring, you know, I mean, are there changes in the stakeholder management, because a lot of mistakes that we made was an assumption, but we've already communicated that, we've already met, we've already explained, but there were new people coming onto board. They, on their side, they haven't internally shared the information, and then there was a complete disconnect, and now you're asking questions. So it was like, why they don't understand that this is coming then and then? You know, we've already told them, you know, and then we discovered, oh, there is a new person that is responsible for it. So the over-communication is really important, you know,
for sure.
Both inside and outside. I mean, if you're a fast-growing company, you have new people who are coming in, you know, they don't know what was told 2 months ago, you know, so you have to constantly, you know, explain the vision and mission and where the product is going,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
I can't agree more, because this is exactly something I experienced, and even internally, with if the product was internal, but for larger group of stakeholders, it's just you can't communicate enough, and you have to repeat things and repeat them every week, and keep repeating them and repeat them to your developers and to your stakeholders. Just keep repeating, even if you feel like an idiot, keep repeating them. Because otherwise those people will tell you like, oh, but you didn't tell us about it. It doesn't matter that you told them a week before. It really doesn't. You can't make error with communicating enough, I would say. Do you have any tips for negotiating with people? Because that's usually part of it when you are discussing roadmap and when you are talking even internally to developers or someone else.
Well, I think the role of product manager in managing stakeholders is more facilitation than negotiation. It's really, can you align all the people behind the goal that you have? And it's not something quid pro quo. It's really about, can we agree that this is the minimum viable that we will deliver? Yeah. Why do you think this should be different? And that facilitation is, like you said, it's exhausting, because you have to do it basically constantly. My advice is always to over communicate. Don't ever expect that people understood you on the first or second time. It's really about as you said, listening. So if you transmit a message, message is received. Now try to understand if the message has been received the way how you communicated it. And I think we tend to forget to do this feedback loop. Yeah, we tend to, okay, I've said it 5 times, yeah, but did you check that the person on the other hand really understood it the way how you meant it? And we come from different cultures, when you hire people, they come and terminology is different, there are different ways how to handle it. So trying to get to know the people and what culture they're coming from, what cultural layers they have, and de-layer it and get to the basic is really key in making the facilitation eventually easier. So the practice that I use is I write what kind of a person I am. Yeah, what's the way how I communicate? What's the way how I like to get approached, etc., etc. And that's a blueprint that I give to the people. Like this is me. You can read about me, and that's easier for them to understand than we know who that person is.
So you're basically preparing them for the way you will act and communicate with them. What was the response from them when you send them that for the first time? It's like, oh, that's something new. I haven't seen that yet, or.
Well, some people have seen it. It's good because they have the time. Anybody has the time, and obviously this is more for internal than external. But they have the time to get to know you on their own, kind of, and don't be surprised. So you can write there things that are maybe hard to discover. Like when I am whatever angry or this is usually because of X, Y, Z. This is what I like. For me, it's like that's the level of detail that I usually require. And when I ask a lot of questions, it's not because I wouldn't be satisfied. It's more about I really want to understand. So.
Yeah. I think what you said is very important, and it's not only for stakeholders. If you are working in any team environment or anything, like describing yourselves and what do you like, what you like, what you don't like, what people usually don't understand about you, and whatever can go a long way. So the other thing for that, how do you negotiate? So my addition would be, yes, facilitation, one thing. Second thing is that what you can do instead of negotiating is providing options. So you know that, right? If whoever, and stakeholders included, see they have only one option, they feel trapped. Usually people with one option feel trapped. If you have 2 options, you now have a dilemma. Is it this one or is it that one? So probably you need to generate more options if there is something that's not clear. Okay, we have option A, option B, option C, and maybe even more, 3 at least, because only when you have 3 options, somebody can actually choose. You cannot choose with one option, you cannot choose with two. That's really difficult. And again, there are studies that are proving that people react like that if you have more options, that can even generate more options, whatever. But then again, people can actually choose and they can align on those options. So if you make your stakeholders feel like trapped, this is the only way we can go, probably they will start asking questions. I don't like that. Why? Whatever. Whereas if you provide them with a list of 3 options and maybe even invite them, what other options do you see or whatever, you're on a good way to end up the discussion in an agreement or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, understanding, what constraints are and why you form these options is really important. It's like if their client is like, why don't you do all of this? Well, we have limited number of resources, so we can do either this for you or that for you. And let's discuss the advantages or disadvantages using A or B rather than just coming there and saying, okay, this is what we do because we have only these resources.
Okay.
So having their optionality provides a vehicle for the facilitation. Because then you suddenly can have a discussion.
Yeah. Tomas?
So maybe just one addition, for those of you who like to read or something, actually there is a whole theory about options. It's called the real options theory. So you might want to check that.
Okay. Real options theory.
Real options theory.
Okay. Good to know. Tomas asked on Slido if you can share the communication blueprint, which I assume was a question for Andrej.
Yeah, I can send to somebody how to deal with me.
Sure. That would be maybe nice if you.
At buddy.
We have the mailing list, so afterwards we can send it to the people who attended the session for everyone how to deal with Andrej.
Where I got it was from business school. It was a communication class, and that was one of the methods that taught us, how to expose yourself towards your colleagues. So I'll send you that.
So far we've been kind of talking about product manager as a facilitator or mediator, if you will, but is stakeholder management responsibility only for product manager or not?
Well, definitely not.
No.
It's
But then how do you then approach, I don't know, for example, your development team or whoever, because they also participate in that?
Well, it's really important what kind of a culture you're building. Product manager is a natural melting pot for all the different type of stakeholders because you have to align with that. If you look at developers, if you look at a technology lead, a technology lead has his or her own surrounding and stakeholders that they have to manage. If it's an architect, they have to talk to product manager, to understand really the vision and the need behind the solution. They have to talk to their developers. So essentially, every one of us, irrespective of function, manages the stakeholders around. Even if it's it's like a single developer who reports to someone, it's still they have to manage upwards. So I think this topic is really interesting because it's not only product managers, but it's anybody. And I think the world would be better or easier if this was an explicit topic that people would discuss. How you should manage the other stakeholders.
Yeah.
And how you should understand the needs and everything, so you achieve eventually your goals.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. I think it's definitely not just usually nothing is a job of one single person. Lovely again, yes. So why should this be? And it's just a thought experiment that's running in my head now. I'm thinking about product management or even development or facilitation, more like skills than people. So I'm not thinking in terms of this is the product manager. But I'm thinking about, if we want to deliver this product successfully, we need to do some product management. And somebody has to have the skills. And it can be more people. Actually, I think it's usually beneficial if you have more people who have the skills. Because having one person who is the only one that has the skills, that's creating the superhero culture, and you probably hear that. And no, I'm not going there. Nothing. Forget the last 3 words.
All right.
If anybody wants to hear more, I'll be glad to talk about it later.
Any bad experience?
No, don't get me
Strong
started.
personal opinions.
Don't get me started. Let's move on. Again, if anybody is interested in superheroes and whatever, we can discuss it later.
Okay, fair enough. All right. I see there's some tension behind this topic.
What?
Okay, so what I wanted to go next, but you kind of throw me out of line with that.
Sorry.
With that. Sorry, I had some question here. Maybe the conflict would be the good topic, because like conflict, I would say conflict is the way of life sometimes, sometimes not. So how do you actually resolve conflict? Because inevitably we all get into conflicts.
That's a difficult question.
Yes.
I know, yeah, and every question is difficult. So I'll be speaking more generally, not just about product management, because yes, as you said, conflict is everything we kind of live in. So I think there are 2 major kinds of conflict. You have that conflict that's just anger, or I would say mindless rage or something, and I don't know how to deal with that. Like, usually that takes an external element that will say, guys, this is not productive or whatever, please go. I think I've been on a seminar that they said they've used this marriage counseling techniques, and they were saying, like, you're flooded, you just can't reason anymore, please leave it, come back in an hour. But then again, and that's something you should really stop, and okay, let's stop it because it's destructive. And then you have the constructive conflict, which I think you should resolve somehow. And the constructive conflict is that actually it makes things better. So if you have a constructive conflict about something, you will end up with something better. And you should recognize that. And I think the only thing you could do as a facilitator or whatever is that you watch out so that it doesn't slip into that destructive, and that you keep everybody respectful of the other's opinion. And that's again you can do only by listening to people, only by understanding what their motivations are and why they are doing that. And this doesn't apply to product management, like this applies to everyday life, right?
Well, I can remember my first conflict in the business environment was exactly 20 years ago when we did development of a large system for an insurance company in Slovakia, for the largest one. And we had to implement a feature, and I had no clue about stakeholder management, whatever. And there was this guy who was from the insurance company, and I knew that I'm right, so I was fighting with him till that's the way how we should do it, and he doesn't know anything about it. Well, it happened to be the head of IT for the insurance company, so he picked up the phone and called the owner of the company that was implementing the system, like, who is this 18-year-old guy telling me what I should do or not should do? Yeah. Well, thanks God I was right, but the learning for me from that is it doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. That's not really the way how you should communicate. So, conflict resolution is again a lot about learning and listening, and a lot about over communicating. I mean, we just had an example today when we talked about the roadmaps. The customer success managers just came to me like, why this is not in the roadmap? That was in the roadmap before, and it is not in the roadmap before. So, I knew that it wasn't in the roadmap, and they are looking at some old documents. But I could have told them that, but I was like, okay, where are you coming from? Why do you think it was in the roadmap? Why do you think this was supposed to be delivered? Oh, because, we took an old report and just copied it and it was there. Aha, okay, so now I understand where you're coming from. So, let's make a few changes in terms of the process, and this is how it works, and here's the blueprint. And the conflict was resolved. But typically the conflict is created because there is a misalignment. People don't have enough information. They think something otherwise, and you have to really find out what's on the other side. and then you can start resolving it backwards.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So misalignment is frequent cause of conflict. The other one is that, and I mentioned that before, if there is only one option and somebody is not aligned with that and he feels trapped, that's a potential for conflict, right? Because the trapped person will attack, essentially. That's what happens. And listening, over-communicating, that helps. And I wanted to say something else, but I forgotten it. So nothing.
If you have stakeholders with different priorities, then you can easily get kind of locked into a situation when you need to satisfy people, and they all see themselves as the most important ones. What is your strategy for approaching that?
So you mean like stakeholders who have different feature requests or whatever?
Might be a customer who is actually with customer A, customer B. They are paying you a lot of money, different amounts though.
Yeah, I mean, it's very complicated. You know, I mean, in SAP, we delivered out of my team a product for 50,000 customers in 40 different countries. And I mean, you do the rolling of the requirements, and you have to have an evaluation metric. Where is the greatest ROI on what you're doing? And you have to also have a way where those needs are not going to be satisfied. How do you communicate back? Yeah. So, I mean, you won't be able to serve everything because you have a limited capacity, and you have to really understand how to communicate back and what potentially other solutions there might be, workarounds or whatever that is. And some of them are going to be forego opportunities because there is only so much you can do on that. It's like in this concrete case, it's like we've always constructed, the process. We collected the requirements, we prioritized them based on business impact, value different countries that were there, and then we used local partners in all of the countries to actually understand where we're going, and if there were things that were missing or they requested and wasn't there, they had to figure out how to communicate it back and find the gaps, find maybe add-ons or other solutions.
And if there is a sales or account department in place, they sometimes tend to prioritize these individual customers because they have different, obviously, metrics than the product development side. How do you explain to them that you are developing for the segment, not for the specific customers? Or is there a way how to like...
That's tough, especially with the salespeople.
Because they know the best, right?
I think that there eventually it comes out to the coordinating device. It's like what's the vision and mission of the company. I think a great example is LinkedIn. LinkedIn's members first policy has significant impact on how their business model and operation works. And the important thing is that you can't. It's like the members of LinkedIn are a mine for various kind of things. But if you have a members first approach, there are just things that you can't do, and maybe that has implication on sales. And it's very important that the salesperson, the head of business development in LinkedIn, has bought into this vision, and that person actually has bought into the vision, and he is the propagator of the members first mentality and tries to find a way how sales should work to achieve its objectives, its goals, but at the same time not violate that policy. And obviously it's difficult. I mean, if you have many different customers, coming back to to your example, where you have to juggle priorities, it's communicating to the sales, okay, this is our vision. This was derive us from from the strategy. That's why we're not going to do this. And then it's about the management. I mean, what's going to be the impact? Yeah. And okay, it's like they have a quarterly goal, and now okay, this is not anymore in the roadmap, but that's something that they were supposed to sell, and now they can't sell it, and now it's going to. So how do you help them, to transition to some other place, or how do you help them to communicate it to CEO or to head of sales? Like, okay, we're not going to be able to do this, we have to change the targets. And suddenly it becomes a different discussion. It's not just, no, we can't do this.
Do you have something to add?
Yes. So that's one thing. And I mean, what you were saying, I think of that as like whatever is our mission and what our values and whatever. I think of them as constraints to whatever your decision-making process is. One way you can basically prioritize between those various features, various customers, that I find helpful is cost of delay. And I assume you know about cost of delay.
Okay, so who knows about cost of delay? Let's do a little hands up thingy.
Okay, so I guess I need to explain.
Not many people, so please explain.
Yes.
A bit.
So cost of delay is basically you will judge how much are you willing to lose if you delay that one feature. And you can compare those delays so that you end up with the best sequence, that you basically lose the least amount of money. And the good thing, what I like about it, is that it can be nicely visualized, and usually people react to nice visualizations better than to, your statements or hippos or whatever. And there is a lot of detail about that. Again, maybe we can talk about it later if somebody's interested. There are some mathematical models. So yeah, maybe that's one thing I've forgotten. I studied mathematics at university, so I'm kind of a math freak a little bit. But you can have various types of this cost of delay, and that plays a role. So, for example, you can have you're losing some money, right? And there can be different losses of the money. For example, I don't know, if my product is a new advertisement website for Valentine's bookings at a hotel, there is some cost of delay. If I don't do it until Christmas, I'll start losing some money. Before that, nobody books for Valentine because everybody's busy with Christmas, right? But after Christmas, people actually start booking. And if I don't have that website, I'll be actually not selling some of the hotel rooms. AKA, there is some cost in me delaying that website. And that increases, and then again, after Valentine, if I don't do it, I don't have anything, probably. Maximum cost of delay. And there is some kind of a curve, right? Which is a cost of delay function. So that's one thing. And there are different types. For example, a good example that another type of cost of delay is an impulse cost of delay. If I don't do it now, I'm going to lose everything, right? That could happen. That's a one-off opportunity. There are such things. For example, there is this one conference that will happen only once. It's happening in a month. If we don't do that, we'll not get that contract that we're aiming for. There is some cost in that delay.
Okay.
And it's impulse. Another one could be, third example, last one, is which people refer to as Taylor Swift concert problem, which is, imagine that you're selling tickets for Taylor Swift's concert, and the cost of delay is really different in this case, because if you advertise it in a year upfront, you're going to sell out. If you do it a month upfront, you're still going to sell out. If you do it a week upfront, you're still going to sell out. Many people like Taylor Swift, or replace Taylor Swift with your favorite artist. But if you delay that advertisement to morning of the day when the concert is happening, you hit a tremendous cost of delay because you will not get to everybody, people have other plans, whatever, right? And actually, by not only thinking about what would the total cost of delay be, but what's actually the function of that, you can prioritize, and you can even show it to the people, and people tend to respond pretty well to that.
Are you a fan of Taylor Swift?
No.
That's what I ask. So, Andrej, are you using cost of delay or what?
So I think when we talk about stakeholder management, this is a great example, and it hasn't been said explicitly. I mean, how to use, a more factual method to get everybody aligned, because we haven't really talked about it, but the best thing, especially when you manage external stakeholders, is to use facts. Yeah. So I mean, if you have, if there are, objective reasons, why something is delayed, or if there are different alternatives, and you can support them by rational arguments, that's the best way. That's the best way how to do it. It's also being systematic. I mean, one of our clients, is changing their mind about what they want, every quarter based on who the stakeholders are. I mean, if you're really systematic and you understand what they have said half a year ago, what they have said a quarter year ago, and you have the facts, okay, this is what you wanted, now suddenly it's changing, so let's talk about it. Suddenly it's different argumentation as if you don't have that, if you are not really systematic and detail oriented. So I think it's really important to have always your facts lined up and be prepared for that discussion.
Yeah, that's something that W. Edwards Deming said, without data you're just another person with an opinion.
Exactly.
And I think it's very true for managing whoever.
I like that you say we should use facts, right? It's obvious. Facts are everything. But if you look at the psychological research in the past few years regarding
People are not
either
really
various
rational,
kind of
right?
biases, people are not rational. Like if you look at the political situation, which we're not gonna discuss.
We can.
But we're not gonna
That's
discuss
a
it.
very good segue to what I
To
wanted
discuss
to
stakeholder
discuss.
measurement. Then you can see the people are not deciding actually based on acts. So, and even in corporation or stakeholders, those people are not like supermans. So
I think one comment to that scientific research. So the research actually shows that yes, we are not rational, and as long as facts are concerned, yes, we take to kind of cherry pick from them, but we cherry pick from them only when we already have a strong opinion. Like if I don't have an opinion, probably you can convince me with the facts. But if I have one, oh sure, oh yes, the data you're showing me, it either proves my point, so that's great data, thank you very much for that, Zdenku, or it doesn't, so where do you get this data? That's not valid. And you asked only a few people, you answered only 5 people, that's not enough. I don't trust your data, I don't like it. But if, and that could be the case in many situations, the stakeholders don't have a firm opinion, you can convince people with data. The problem is that opinion, like if I have a firm opinion, firm belief, no, data's not gonna work. But if I don't, yes, it will.
So yeah, I would say it's a necessary but not a sufficient condition.
Yes. Nicely put.
then how do you deal with such a person? If it's your the most important stakeholder and he has a very strong opinion, as you said, you give him the facts and he doesn't believe you or doesn't believe the facts, what's left to do?
Listening.
You go for you go for a drink.
With him and just
Alcohol also helps, yes, that's true.
yeah, it's right. People can sign anything after that.
No, I mean, but it's like, I mean, you have to understand where you're starting. If you're starting at 0 or you're starting at -50. Okay, they have a strong opinion. Can you do your research before and really understand that the person, is strongly opinionated? And let's say, the person doesn't believe in machine learning. It's like, I mean, that, it's like that's, that's just peanuts. So having that information helps you to prepare. So how do you get them from a non-believer to somebody who is neutral? Yeah, and I mean, it's like you have to understand, what area, what are their interests, whatever, through listening or through other means, why maybe they have that belief, and try to bring something from their context that will change or start changing their belief. And only through that you can get them to a neutral zone, and then you can start persuading them maybe with data. I mean, if they are in the negative zone and you bring data, you will not win anything because they will not still believe you.
Yeah, other thing you can start with if you have these stakeholders that already believe in something else is that you acknowledge that they believe in something else at the beginning of the conversation. Like acknowledging, okay, I know you believe in this. And then you can add the curiosity. I would like to know why. And why is probably not, this is not the best question. You probably have to formulate questions in a more elaborate way, because the why questions are usually like, you're an idiot, I'm asking you why. Why are you an idiot? So you have to kind of do that research and think about how to approach that person. And starting with, okay, I know you believe in something else, but still I would like to learn more, let's discuss it, and maybe we'll come up with something, usually opens people, not everybody. And, oh yes, there is a secret. The secret is, guess what? Some people you just cannot agree with. It just can't be done. So, and there is something, I don't know whether, and we're kind of again running away from the topic. So, we've been at the Agile Prague conference. I don't know how many of you have been there, but there was a keynote by Linda Rising, who studies psychology and whatever. And there is one important question if you're in a discussion or whatever, and this applies to stakeholders through daily life, whatever. And the question is that you need to ask, and you need to ask yourself at the first place, and then you can ask the second person. And the question is there anything that would make me change my opinion? Can the other side say anything that would make me reconsider? And if the answer is no after a discussion, and if you are the one who is saying no to yourself, probably you should walk away from that conversation, because it's just not going to work out usually when it's a conflict situation.
There is a great movie, I'm blanking on the name, but it's about a jury that is supposed to decide on death penalty for a young guy who allegedly murdered somebody. I'll remember the name. And the jury, except one guy, is decided that of course he's done it because he's black and blah, 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 blah. And that guy in that movie, it's the best negotiation movie that you can see. That guy in that movie eventually persuades the whole 12 people. I think it's called the 12 Angry Men.
Yes.
That guy persuades all the people that they're actually wrong. The tactics that he uses are brilliant, and I recommend highly everyone to watch that movie. It's a great classic.
Cool. I would say we are nearing to the end of discussion of the allotted time. There was just one question which landed right now.
And that is?
He doesn't like data anyway. I think we discussed this. Guys, do you have one last thing we would like to say to the audience about stakeholder management? Something you want to stress out, what we've discussed or what we didn't discuss?
Maybe, I ended by how I approach anybody. I approach everyone by thinking that they have good intent. Yeah? I always think that the person on the other side, whoever that is, thinks positively and want to achieve something good. And that's my starting point, and that makes my life much easier, rather than be negative or something like that. And that helped me a lot to overcome a lot of difficult situations where you think, oh, that person doesn't like you or whatever. So start with a positive thinking about the intent of the other person or other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
You?
So this is a great idea, a great tip. So what I would like to add to that is that if we are talking about stakeholders, stakeholders are just people. They are people like everybody else. So probably you need to approach them as people, not as stakeholders. Those are people, so probably we can treat them as other people and we can get to an agreement, usually. And yes, usually people want to do a good job. There is really a minority of people who really don't want to do that. And if you approach the conversation with, okay, this person really wants to do a good job, maybe I don't understand his intent fully, maybe there is something I'm missing, that could be a road to success. Not always, but most of the time.
Okay. So maybe we should have called this like people management, not just stakeholder management.
I don't like people management. I don't like the term.
People managers. Okay, so guys, this was Andrej from Merlon Intelligence, Tomas from MSD. Please, everyone, a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.